Let me know. Oh, we'll record it. Excellent. Okay, so this is a cap call for February. We have a nice agenda, and as usual, we start with the foundation. I think Swarna is here to give us an update on CF Summit and all the good stuff going on there. Swarna?
Yep. So the usual updates are already in the agenda document, so I'm not going to go over that. The only thing I wanted to point out is the Contributor Summit that we are starting it brand new this time in Philadelphia. It will be a day zero activity from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. So we're just doing a few hours on day zero. It's open for all contributors, new, old, veterans, whatever. If you have contributed at any point of time, even if you don't contribute anymore, you're more than welcome. The agenda is still being finalized for that specific 3-hour slot. I will share that on the on the online agenda or the registration list once we get there. But if you are a contributor, please do register for that, for the Contributor Summit on day zero.
Yeah, and Swarna and I discussed this a little bit, and it's it's going to be kind of what I guess contributors want to make out of it in terms of what you want to discuss, and certainly it's the first time I think we're doing this, right? So
yeah,
it'd be interesting to find out like what are the impediments for you to contribute, or are you happy and things like that, right? So it should be
it will be an open-ended discussion across the room. So some of the topics that at least I got suggestions from the community are doing a retro as to what are the things that have gone well so far, what are the things that could go better, that we could have done better, and all those kind of discussions. So bring all your thoughts and all your suggestions and feedback. I will have a whiteboard set up as well in the room in case you all want to kind of draw any kind of components or any kind of whiteboarding kind of discussion. So as I said, the agenda is definitely driven by the community. I got some suggestions from the community for this particular one. Based on how it goes this year, we will reevaluate as in should we have it as a longer session? Should we have it as an entire day-long session on day zero, or should we make it a separate kind of activity? So based on the feedback that we get this year, we will definitely change it and make it even better in the subsequent summits.
Yeah, and I think you might have said this, but let's just be clear. Is it at the beginning of the day or at the second half of the day?
It is from 12 to 3. So it is second half of the day, right before the keynotes begin.
So you have time to arrive, even if you're coming on the first day.
Exactly. Yeah, we wanted to give people, mainly because we are only a little over a month from Summit. So even if people are trying to finalize their travel plans now, we wanted to give them enough time to arrive on that day and settle in, and then head over to Contributor Summit.
Cool. Excellent. So everybody should be registered because price increase on 23rd, but everybody here probably are contributors, so you should be good. Okay, any questions for Swarna or CF Summit or anything related to Foundation? Nope. All right, so we have Eric here as usual.
Thanks, Dr. Max.
Hey.
Sure. I want to give a few highlights from the Runtime PMC over the past month or so. I believe since we last met, the rules integration team has published version 7 of CF deployment. So this is continuing to move everyone forward towards CF Linux FS3 as the main build pack root FS. It's now the default. And it's also moving deployments over to the PXC MySQL release internally if you're using that as your Cloud Foundry application runtime database. Sounds like CAPI is making a lot of good progress on rolling deployments, and in particular, they're nailing down more of the details and work to support explicit revisions of applications, so you can roll forwards and backwards for those when you're doing those rolling deployments of apps. They've also been working a lot with the CLI team as part of the V3 acceleration team. And so they've recently posted on CFDev with some plans around completing the V3 Cloud Controller API and transitioning everything to that over some period of time. So I expect that affects a lot of us on this call, and I'm sure they would appreciate feedback. Likewise, the log aggregator team is trying to deprecate their older components and the APIs that they support. And there's already been some discussion on CFDev about deprecating the Firehose endpoint in particular, because there are a lot of integrations built against that. So they're certainly continuing to seek feedback on that deprecation window. I'd encourage people to contact those teams directly, either on CFDev or on Slack or via email. A few other highlights. The routing and container networking teams have been discussing ways to reorganize, and they've merged into a single networking team that's supporting both existing GA components like the Go routers and container networking via Silk, but are also working on integrating components of Istio into Cloud Foundry to support the next generation of the routing tier. So effectively the same work they've been doing, but trying to get more aligned in terms of their team structure and goals so they can operate more efficiently. One exciting update from the Windows side is that the Garden Windows team is now integrating Windows Server 2019. So they should have a new wave of updates to work well against that. I think there's probably going to be a new Windows container rootfs to go along with that, because that tends to be highly coupled to the OS version that's running on the Windows Diego cells. And then also the Eirini team seems to be making a lot of good progress. They've been focused a lot on hardening, so making sure that Eirini can run in a redundant, highly available configuration to reduce downtime during updates or unexpected failures. Sounds like they're working on enforcing all of the container limits that we expect for CF workloads. And they've been doing some other work to make it easier to opt into native staging via Eirini, instead of delegating some of that work to Diego by default.
Excellent. Thank you, Eric. Any questions? Jules, you want to add anything? I mean, I think Eric covered it, but I don't know if you...
That seemed like a pretty good summary. Apart from the bit about needing to deal with updates, we won't need any updates because the first version we ship will be perfect. Apart from that, it was a pretty good summary.
That's how software works.
Did you record that? It's being...
Okay, I retract that now. I see your point.
I'll extract that and use it out of context later.
All right. All right. Thank you, Eric. Appreciate it. I don't see Fred, but maybe he's signed up on different name for Bosch. Okay, so let's keep Bosch for a minute and go to extension, and hopefully he'll join. He usually joins and give us an update, so I don't know what happened. So for extensions, I think I added a few highlights from the last meeting we had in January, and I think the app autoscaler, for instance, they're trying to scale to, they're testing, I guess, scaling to 20,000 apps. They're integrating with Stratus, not Stratosphere. I'll fix that. All right, sorry about that. And they have a new CLI plugin. Build packs, similar to what Eric was saying about CF Linux FS3. That's one of the changes that they're making. And there's two new build packs, I guess, one for R and Nginx. So maybe you want to check it out. And then there's also a lot of work going on to support the buildpacks.io initiative. So that's definitely something to look into. I actually have planned to chat with them today. So hopefully next time we'll have a better update. Abacus, there's various refactoring and bug fixes. I think one thing about Abacus to mention is that the SAP team wants to, I guess, go in-house with a version. So version 2 that we had planned probably won't happen, but this current version will just stay and then go into some kind of an end of life. So if you're interested in Abacus and interested in this direction, then definitely ping me or Ilsto, sorry, and we can update on that more detail, or join the extensions call that should be discussed there. And Stratus, probably like the highlights of all of extensions. It's going on very well. There's new features being added all the time. They had a CVE, so if you didn't see this and you're using it, definitely ping me or ping the team. They have a Stratos channel, so you may want to go there and learn about that. But version 2.3.0 is released, so if you go to their website, to the GitHub, you can see the different releases. I don't know if they included the details of the CVE, but certainly, you know, now that it's out, you could discuss with them, I guess. Multi-apps, we had an update in January from the SAP team. And I think one cool thing there to mention is the MBT assemble tool that they added. So you can assemble, you know, your multiple apps from different things, including Docker image. So that's pretty cool. And then Blockhead, I think this team, one of the key things they did, they added support for the Hyperledger fabric. So now you can use the Blockhead to deploy into a Hyperledger. And I actually saw a demo of this by Sweta, a member of the team at IBM Tank, and that was pretty cool. So you know, through that service, you can deploy not only on Hyperledger, but also, I guess, on Ethereum. Nima is always on the calls. He's actually on this call. So if you have questions, you can definitely ask now, I guess. So let me stop here and see if there are any questions for extensions or comments. We have a few of the leaders there. So if you want to ask questions about their projects, I'm sure they'll be happy to chat. Nope. Okay. People want to hear about Bosch, or I guess get to the talks. Okay. Very fine.
Bosch.
Well, let's see if we can have it, because I don't see Fred. So anybody from Bosch? Okay. I'll take a to-do to ping them and find out what's going on, because Fred has been very, very good at coming pretty much the past, you know, every single, you know, CAB call. So maybe something's going on. He's in Montreal. They know how to deal with the cold, so I'm sure it's not about that. There must be some other reason. Maybe he's on vacation. Okay, so we'll get to the talks then. Let me share my screen, because I'll be the one presenting first. My presentation should be short. So I'm gonna do everything. Wow, okay. So I sent out a survey, which got closed, I guess, recently, about a week ago. It followed pretty much what we did last year. And what you're gonna see now are the results. So hopefully you guys can see my screen. If you can't see my screen, yell out. All right, so it's just a short presentation on the results. So obviously the goal is to do a retro, right? I mean, we can't really do retro for CAB calls every month, since the call is every month, and you know, it wouldn't be, I guess, you know, it makes sense to wait for a few, and yearly seems about right. We did it last time, it worked out. So the goal is, of course, to collect feedback and then see what we can do to improve. I think after last year, we improved it to a point where I could see some of the changes, and then hopefully we can keep improving. So the questions, if you took the survey, is very simple. It's only 3 questions. First, how often have you attended, or do you attend, pretty much? So I can get an idea of whether or not, you know, you're an outsider or you're part of the team that attend usually. What you enjoyed the most, and then constructive feedback. So keep it simple. If you have comments on the questions in terms of should I ask different questions for next year, then definitely ping me. But I think this kind of keeps it small and short. So we had 24 responses when I stopped it, you know, last Monday. Compared to last year, it's about the same. I don't know if it's the same people that actually responded, so it's not clear, but it was about 25 last year. So I guess, and we have about 25 people joining, so maybe it's just us, which is, I guess, good to some extent. So this is the spread, I guess, of the question number 1. You can see that it's kind of almost evenly distributed, although a fair number of people that, never attended. I guess a goal would be to try to convert those 8 people that did not attend to attend, right? So I think there was one response in terms of the constructive feedback that explains why people can't attend, which is I'll spare you. I'll tell you right now is that people complain that the 8 a.m. time is very early. Obviously, if you're on the West Coast, it's kind of the hour where you're trying to get to work. If you're anywhere else around the world, that's kind of okay. Although if you're in China, that's probably, end of your day. If you're in Australia, well, what can you we cannot please everybody, but we only have one good person there. Well, maybe more, but
yeah, we don't know anybody there.
This is kind of the words list that came out. My name come up there. So I think my payment to a couple people were on point. But otherwise, I think people are super happy about the demos and, of course, the project updates, which is not surprising because that was one of the things that we fixed to make that better. So this is the tag cloud for all the words. So the way I generated those and also the word list is to take all the comments, because in each question we allow people to put, to free-form comments, and I convert them to lowercase, and then I run to this tool that removes, basic, propositions and stuff like that, and then generates a tag cloud. And you can see clearly that demos are the key. So we'll try to keep doing that. And then the last question number 2. Question number 2, highlights. So I took some of the responses that I thought were interesting. So getting demos, presence of the complete foundation. That was only one time shown, but definitely it's good to see that people care about that, right? And then that's me here. I swear I didn't write this, but somebody did. I appreciate it, but definitely demos and status report, of course. And then somebody says, I don't even know what a cab call is. So clearly we have some work to do. Right? Okay, so question 3 is constructive feedback. The words that come up don't make a lot of sense, but I think it makes a little bit more sense when you see the selected responses. I think, the fact, I guess in some ways they're happy the fact that we keep having it, right? And we're pretty consistent having it. That's what I'm guessing, the meaning of that. I think one of the big thing that came out that probably a good action item doesn't show up very highly because only one person mentioned it, is to break the YouTube videos into smaller sub videos. So that way, like, somebody wants to see Constantine talk, they don't have to go through me and the highlights. So if you want to always see the highlights, then break out the highlights. So I thought that was a very good one.
I thought the highlight of this was you speaking, though.
Well, I know, but I don't think that's fair. I'm sure that's not right. Somebody's just being very nice to me, and
I must be.
Yeah, exactly. My payments are working, but that's not what it is. I definitely think the breaking the YouTube video will help, because like if you watch YouTube and you watch a multi-segment show, it's great to have like for instance, I watch Stephen Colbert every day, and I watch it on YouTube because I watch the little segments. I don't have to watch the whole show, right? So I think that's definitely a very good one, but we'll have to work out how to do this since Stuck and Wayne does a lot of the work, and we're not trying to add more work to Ashley and Mitzi. Let's see some of the highlights of this. So more company representation. So that's not showing in the tag cloud because it was mentioned once, but I extracted it. And that's probably a fair point because it seems like we have lots of talk from SAP. Stuck and Wayne used to do a lot of talk, but they are certainly well represented. And then of course the key members of the foundation, Pivotal, IBM, and so on. But we probably should try to reach out to smaller companies and see if they have talks, right? So I'll take that to do. Keep up the good work. So I'm happy people are happy about this. That came up at least 2 or 3 times, so that's good. And then 8 a.m. Pacific, yes. I just don't know what else to do. Somebody suggested 8:30. The problem with 8:30 is that if it would finish at 9:30, then that means that it eats into people like Eric who, part of Pivotal here, have to go to a stand-up, right? So that's a bit challenging. And then nothing, which is also nice, right? So people don't want any change. Okay, and then the last thing is, I guess I had one more, keep it up there. And then I put some of the text as is, except converted to lowercase into the presentations. So if you want to see that, click the link in the agenda, and then you'll get access to that presentation and see it. If you want to see the 2017, let me know. Or if you go back in time in the CAB agenda, then you should see a link to it. That's all I have. Let's see if we have any questions. Maybe if you have like feedback that you couldn't give at the time or you didn't take the survey, maybe you can give it now. It's all fair. I mean, we want to make this time the most productive time that we can for the Cloud Foundry Foundation, and we're always happy for your feedback. So any comments? Anything? No? Okay, so I guess people are happy. Let me stop sharing and ask Konstantin to take over so that way you can be ready to show us. In the meantime, if you have a question, feel free to tell us. I guess people are happy. We'll keep doing it then. Can't complain. I mean, I'm happy to come here, take the train at 6 a.m. and be here. So it's once a month. I can do that. All right, Konstantin, it's all yours.
All right. So, woo! Stop doing that. That was really loud. Hi, I'm Konstantin, and I was asked to introduce or present the stuff we did around Silk. It's a prototype, but I mean, we thought it might be a cool thing to have in the future. So this is what we did and why we did it. So the problem is CF uses Silk for CNI. Kubernetes has a lot of choices, but none of them run on Cloud Foundry, so there's no common ground whatsoever. And it would be really nice to have microservices with UDP maybe, because I've seen customers do that, and maybe even microservices with exotic protocols. But then again, you have to solve how you're going to expose that. One solution could be an edge router that does the bridging to the Silk overlay network itself and then just routes to the pods directly. But I'm not going to go too deep into that area. So essentially, Silk is a CNI after the container networking interface specification, and there wasn't really that much work to be done to make it run on Kubernetes. We didn't really change the actual code. We built wrappers to prototype faster, not have to compile all the time, and at some point it started working. So you could actually just use Eirini, but that would completely leave out kube clusters that are standalone, maybe deployed by a GCP or other mechanisms. Also, I have no idea whether Eirini, which uses Kubernetes or Kubernetes workers as a scheduler, will actually support Helm. And
I want to jump in here, just for what it's worth. We have a story in our backlog that says, look at Stark and Wayne's awesome article, and links to your article. So for what it's worth, that's the Eirini point of view is we might well steal some of your work.
cool, go for it, it's public. Yeah, so I didn't really know how much time I have, so the slides are really just scratching the surface. I wanted to just have the tech demo at the end, so people will actually see it working. Well, it kind of just works, but it kind of just works. I mean, we had to build a wrapper around NSEnter because Kubernetes looks for an interface that has scope global, while Silk creates an interface that is scope link, which makes sense if you look at the networking architecture. I mean, Silk by itself just builds bridges from the container hosts and then routes that traffic, and somewhere in between there's a policy API that creates IP table rules to allow or block traffic. But having that run on a kube worker just worked out of the box, so we just co-located Silk policy API, Gaxlan agent, and the daemon, and then again that already created our bridge, and the only thing to solve from that point on was to figure out how to actually mount one of those Silk interfaces into a kube container. The nice thing about this would be, so first of all, we can still use Helm. We have a pretty much vanilla Kubernetes running there. The only change we had to make was to add a configurable CNI path. So we have a custom CFCR release running under the hood. But the only thing we did there was pretty much make the CNI path and the path to the config and the binaries configurable. And the easy wins there are isolation, but also interconnectivity between different kube clusters as well as cloud foundries. I mean, if you take that thing to another level, you could, once you figured out two foundations, having two foundations using the same Silk agent, you could just link containers in between them once you externalize the actual routing API from the Cloud Foundry deployment. And the other really nice thing is that it does not have any dependencies on your infrastructure layer. So no NSXT required, no load balancer as a service required whatsoever. And you also get the CF policy system for free. That also just works. We'll see that in a few minutes. So I added the links to what we did here again. So there's 2 blog posts currently. I'm writing up a third one that actually explains in depth what we had to do with the IP tables and how to deploy that thing. Once that's done, I'm going to probably post it in OSS Slack if people want to rebuild that. Currently, most of the CI is in here. I updated it a bit to work with the latest CF deployment. Had to redeploy everything because that required Bosch DNS, which we didn't have to have back then. Anyway, let's just switch to the tech demo. So on the left, I have targeted a CF. I pushed CFN just to have something running in there. And here I do have a Kubernetes CFCR cluster targeted. I didn't really deploy any specific workloads. I'm just going to use whatever is there in Kube system. Right. And the first thing we'll see, those IP addresses are from the Silk range. So we got allocated a 24 range for this worker node, and it's running a few pods. I mean, I can just delete that pod. It will start up with a fresh IP just to show that it's working. And Kube system, delete pod. This. And in the meantime, I'm going to CFSSH into CFNV here. Cool. Get pod. there we go. It's got a different IP. It's actually running. It's not crashing or something. And yeah, so I don't know whether I enabled access yesterday evening or not. I'm just going to disable it for the moment. What this script does is pretty much just CF curl the policy API. The policy API uses an app ID as the policy ID. So what we did for pods, we just looked up the parent of that pod, which could be a deployment, a replica set, or whatever, and used the UID of the parent of the pod for the policy. So what we do to enable or disable access is, and that could be easily done by CF CLI, it's just hitting CF endpoints anyway. So you need the namespace system, and then you just say whichever pod, and then the app. So that's now going to delete the policy. I don't know whether it was already there. So I'm just going to hit up kubedns and do a lookup. Oops, that's the wrong pane. Go left. And it should not work. So, yep, we're going to time out. So I'm just going to rerun that same command with enable access. Same script, just does. Come on, fail. Yeah, so here is where you see that we actually just look up stuff from the Kubernetes API that should be accessible on the worker anyway. So whatever creates the policies within Silk could do that easily as well. CFCR already has cluster credentials on there. There's not much to change around it. If I now rerun this again, hooray, it works. Anything else you want to see or have questions? I can go into the actual code.
Will this work if from a non-CFCR deployed cluster?
Sure. If you, I mean, the thing we did on Kubernetes itself. So here's the pipeline. Let's just oh, damn it. It should, because the only thing we did was to collocate the Silk policy stuff, because someone needs to take care of creating the IP table rules. So apart from that, the cluster is pretty much vanilla. We just collocated a few jobs.
I see.
The pre-merge template.
So you'd have to create a daemon set and like get those jobs running on every pod?
So you definitely need them on the workers, and I think you'll end up having them on the master as well, because this is where kubeproxy runs from, and kubeproxy needs to be able to access the Silk IPs. So the service IPs will still work. The thing is with the service IPs, I mean, they're just destination NAT to the actual pod IP that gets assigned from the CNI. And therefore, the master needs to know about it. But that also works. I mean, I can, what's the kubeproxy command?
Yeah, I think when we make the pull request, right, for CFCR, then we will just add the job with the Silk job in there. It's just another ops file.
So, and the actual logic is hidden behind the NSEnter wrapper, but that is again just so Kubernetes does not fail looking up the IP address. So it's just either if it's a default call, do this, or change to scope link, because this is why Kubernetes would fail look up the IP address of the actual pod. And then the CNI wrapper itself is not too complicated. I mean, I'm just changing up a few things in whatever gets passed to the actual Silk binaries.
It would be super nice if there was a way, I guess it's like a really hard thing to request, but it'd be super nice if there's a way to do this like a bit more abstractly than CFCR. Like it seems like this needs to be kind of in CFCR because it needs to patch into NSEnter. It'd be really nice, like Max says, if it could be a daemon set so that it was kind of applicable to any Kubernetes. I mean, CFCR is great, but there's like a lot of people using various other Kuberneteses.
Yeah, but that should not be a problem. So I think you should be able to do that via a daemon set. Nothing we have here is so specific that it's
Nice.
working. So the only thing that's missing now is whatever we do with IP table rules. And I gotta admit, when we started this, I had no idea about that. So post start. So this is what I came up with. There's still a few things that were a work in progress, like having the master in there and also doing the IP tables for all the workers. Currently, it's only working with one worker, but essentially we pretty much allow to implement the Kubernetes networking model from within a worker's 24 range, or all of the workers' 24 assigned 24 range. We need to make sure that stuff in kube system or kube public namespaces has to be available. But then again, this could be done within the actual, an extra plugin. So the CNI config gives you a list of plugins to call, and we could just have a Silk Kubernetes plugin that then takes care of those extra steps. And apart from that, we don't really do much. So we change up the namespace and the pod and get, again, the owner reference. So we can utilize that as the policy ID later on. And just inject a little bit into the call to the Silk, the original CNI wrapper plugin. And it deploys. I mean, I had no manual intervention whatsoever. The CF itself just had an extra ops file for exposing Silk and scaling everything to one because we wanted to save resources. There's no point in having more than one on CF side. But it will be probably a bit tricky to figure out the whole networking via IP tables within a kube cluster itself. And it's also obviously limited to IP tables for the moment because that's also works. So no IPVS, for example, like Calico or Weave let you do.
Okay, cool.
Super cool.
So we still have about 18 minutes. Is there anything else you want to show us, Konstantin?
No, I mean, I was told I would have 15 to maybe 30 minutes, so I just tried to keep it short. I don't want to waste anyone's time because this is the gist of it. It works, and it's a nice thing to have for the future.
Okay, cool. Let's see if we have any other question. Otherwise, we can give everybody back 15 more minutes of their time on Wednesday. So Wednesday morning. No questions? Let's see if there's any like chat questions. No. Okay. Going once? No.
So maybe it would be nice if someone with more knowledge about IP tables or whatever can help Konstantin out to just, if he has the time.
Community. I can think of somebody like Dimitri, but I'm not gonna volunteer him. Sorry.
We have some knowledge in Garden of IP tables, so feel free to ping in #Garden, and we can see. Although IP tables is, I think, terrible for everyone. Yeah, but we can try. We can try and help.
Yeah, or maybe another solution. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, also obviously the container networking people, like they will have like the actual people who did Silk. I'm sure they would be happy to help out.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Sorry, my Zoom just died.
No, that's fine. I think we're at the end anyways. All right, thank you, Constantine, Stock and Wayne, everybody. We'll talk again in March. And then for April, we will do it live as we do usually at CF Summit. I'm working out the schedule with Deb and the team. We'll talk next month. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.